Once again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very warm welcome to another very nice event we are doing jointly with TiE Chennai International Centre, supported by a couple of other sponsors. Thank you for coming on time. We always start on time. We started today 1 minute before time. I just want to really warmly welcome each one of you. Mr. Mali will speak to you. It's indeed a privilege for us to join with TiE and Chennai International Centre to present this evening. It gives us great opportunity for us to really welcome to you to MMA Chennai. And this building has got multiple facilities. Maybe next time when you are free, you must visit. Make use of our library. We got 1.25 million books. Lovely. We got a lovely terrace garden. We got multiple classrooms, and all this is all made only for you, actually. Good to have you with us. And before I move on, the formal thing, we have a couple of programs which you have finalized for this month, and we thought we'll share with you. One is on 29th, we have an event on why it matters and how to do it rightly. Then we have another event with time links. Then on 13th November, we have an event which is very important event. That is our event which is online. Where is the money coming from? We have got three outstanding speakers. Dr. Narayanan, former Finance Secretary and Advisor to Prime Minister, then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Sham Shekhar is founder of CEO of iThought. Arun Kumar, you might have seen him in many times in television. Dadiwala, we call him, and he's quite critical of the government. He's very good. He's there. On 14th November, again, we have an event with MMA. This is discussing on the book, Changing Fast and Slow, How to Find Your Organization Best Path in the New Business Paradigm. And we have Renuka Ramnath. You know, Renuka Ramnath is one of the outstanding great achiever. Jeroen Tas and also Gopi Koteeswaran is another thing. This is happening on 14th and 17th. There are a number of other events have already been tied up, and I don't want to take you through. These are some important events which we finalize. Besides that, this coming Monday, we have the All India Management Student Convention, where some of you are going to be there tomorrow. 1,000 plus people are already registered. We have closed our registrations. 1,000 MBA students come and attend this, and over 5,000 participate in the competition. We have Chanakya Mastermind. We have some outstanding speaker lined up, and it's all live. If you are really keen to attend, you can always connect with our people. We'll try and accommodate some of you. Otherwise, you can watch it live. We have some outstanding speakers speaking, including Yogi Kocher, who has got one of the finest studio lab in Gurgaon. Then we've got Bharat Bala, film producer, uses AI extensively. We've got each session, we've got an outstanding chosen speaker. Over 1,000 people are going to attend this. Coming to today's event, thanks to Akila, TiE, and also to Mali, who pushed us to do this. We have been discussing about this event for the last 4 months. And all the time I get to know from Akila, Alex is coming. I said, okay, I know the Alex Pandian, let's see this Alex. And so much excitement amongst us, and so much excitement among the people who have come here today. And we are indeed privileged to host this event today at MMA, along with TiE Chennai and Chennai International Centre, duly supported by Avatar, Mudal, and other sponsors there. I know without sponsorship support, we cannot host such a high profile, and people of celebrity coming from international, from Switzerland, is come all the way from there to talk to us today about strategy, growth, and the competition in the age of AI. And Dr. Alex is going to be there to chair this session. We have our own Mr. Mali. Mr. Mali is the past president of MMA. He'll get wide. He's also vice president of Chennai, TiE Chennai. And so I must tell him. And he's also does many other events. These two are very important. And we always prominently mention he's the immediate past president, because he was the past president and president twice in MMA, which is very rarely happens actually. And now I request distinguished speaker for this evening, Mr. Alex, Dr. Alex, and also Mali, to please take your place on the dais. Mr. Mali, ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause to
Thank you. Thanks.
Before I move forward, it's always a privilege for us to honor the distinguished speaker for this evening. What we do is we give them more books. It is a book published by MMA. I request Akira to join me on stage so that let's do the honor of presenting the book on behalf of MMA to our distinguished speaker.
Step forward. For you, we'll keep it for you. You can take it when you go. Thank you.
Now it's my privilege to request Mr. Wali to deliver the opening remarks and welcome address. Before that, let me may I have the AV of the profile of the distinguished speaker and Mr. Mali.
Mr. K. Mahalingam, partner and director of the TSM Group of Companies and past president of MMA, is a transformative leader and investor with over 35 years of experience. An alumnus of NIT Trichy and IIM Calcutta, Mr. Mahalingam has built TSM Group into one of South India's most respected automobile and diversified business groups. A pioneer in financial services, real estate, and angel investing, Mr. Mahalingam continues to mentor entrepreneurs and champion innovation across industries.
May I request Mali to deliver the opening remarks and all the welcome address, please.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see people looking for seats. We do have full house in MMA normally, but it looks like an extra full house today, if you can say something like that. Anyway, welcome all of you to what promises to be an enthralling evening, or if not an enthralling, definitely an inspiring and intellectually provoking evening. It is indeed my privilege and pleasure to welcome you all to this wonderful session by Dr. Alex Osterwalder, CEO, founder and CEO of Strategyzer, based out of Switzerland. Alex, thank you so much for coming all the way from Switzerland, from cool Switzerland to pretty warm Chennai.
My pleasure.
It's indeed an honor for us. I think this is possible thanks to many people, including Akila, who bailed out of being on stage today. I must mention that. Okay. So I think she spoke to us nearly 3-4 months back, and a group captain and Abhi spoke, and it's indeed fortunate. I think it's one of our rare kind of event in Chennai that we have invitees from TiE Chennai, Chennai International Centre, and the Madras Management Association. I think that kind of explains the house being overfull today, apart from the fact that you're a speaker. So it's indeed must say a few words about MMA and TiE before I start, because as somebody said that I'm currently an office bearer in TiE as well. To start with MMA, where I was a past president here. MMA is an organization founded in 1956. We've been continuously winning the Best Management Association Award for 15 years running. So including this year. Maybe somewhere along then somebody read your books somewhere also. Apart from that, MMA has got now I think 12 or 13 chapters. We are one of the most respected management associations in the country. Coming to this evening, see, what makes our event successful is a combination of 3 factors: what the topic is about, who the speaker is, and who the audience is, basically. Okay, and I think we have an unbeatable combination on all 3 today. The topic is, I think, is something which even a lay person like me is curious about. Business leaders are worried about, or many are see an opportunity about. So what effect AI has on strategy, and what it is going to do the way we do business, for example. I was talking to you before you came on here. Today I read an article saying that Amazon is going to replace 5 lakh jobs with bots, basically. And sometime back, I read that one of the leading NBFCs in the country is moving part of its collections efforts to bots, for example. And of particular interest to me, as I mentioned to you, for small and medium businesses like ours, where I was telling you anecdotally, we have customers who come to us either to buy or sell a car, which is one of our businesses, with information already on what the possible price could be. Earlier days, we used to thrive on the lack of information. You can call it information arbitrage. That's gone away completely. He comes and tells me that this price discovery engine or this LLM model has quoted me this price. It puts me in a fix, and I have to either defend it or find a way to convince him. At the end of it, try and make some money as well. So I think the impact of AI is manifold, not just large corporations, but I'm particularly worried with the word I would use on what impact it will have on SMEs and medium and small enterprise. Because in India, I think you would know around 80 to 90% of the job creation is in these sectors, basically. And talking of jobs, there's a big worry about job losses and job replacement by AI. So in a country like India, that's going to have a massive cascading effect in case that does happen. That's a concern. Now, given all this, how do companies plan their hiring strategies? You can call them firing strategies. How much can SMEs or MSMEs invest in? What kind of investments are required for them to be able to ride this wave and not get wiped out? These are questions in my mind. I don't think these are very technical, but I'm talking from the point of a person who's getting impacted by it. As an impact, I'm sure many of us in the room are getting impacted at different levels by this, and many of them are proactively doing something about it, and maybe those who do more will get better. I understand from what I read about you that you're great at all this, basically. In the sense, anticipating change, enabling companies to manage change, innovation, etc. So if AI is something which is evolving fast, I think we have with you a rare individual, top 10 management thinkers in the world who's always thought ahead of the curve. So given the fact that we have a discussion on something which is emerging, I think nobody better than you who can talk about, because you've been ahead of the curve all the time, you should be able to give us insights, and hopefully at the end of this session, we'll be, if not wiser, less worried. Okay, hopefully. And at least we'll get a perspective on what we can expect and what we should be worried about or what we should do. Both the opportunity and the threat, how do you manage it, basically. Finally, we have an audience which it's eclectic in every sense of the word. You have members of TiE Chennai, and Akila is also another award-winning TiE member. She's won awards globally as well, so we have many award winners here. Is that people, they represent the entrepreneurial cream of this city, basically. And you have members from Chennai International Centre who represent the intellectual capital of the city. And finally, MMA, we represent management thought. So I think there's a wonderful combination of a happening topic, a man who thinks ahead of his time like you, and a wonderful audience. I think we'll have a great evening, inspiring evening. Thank you. Welcome all. Thank you. Can we have the AV of...
Dr. Alex Osterwalder, founder and CEO of Strategyzer, is a leading global expert in strategy and innovation. He co-created the business model canvas and value proposition canvas used by millions worldwide. Ranked among the top 10 management thinkers, Dr. Alex is also a best-selling author and keynote speaker. Through Strategyzer, he helps organizations master growth, transformation, and innovation. Dr. Alex holds a PhD from HEC Lausanne and serves as a visiting professor at IMD.
Okay, so now I got to deliver, right? I'm going to talk about innovation, if we can just put the slides up on the screen. So I might disappoint you with the first statement. I'm not going to talk that much about AI because for me it's just another technology. Now it's more powerful than probably most of the things that we've seen so far, but at the end of the day it's basically a challenge for how we run companies to reap benefits from AI. AI is not the real challenge, and you know, some of you might know me from having started together with my co-author and friend Yves, the business model canvas. We created some other tools. But what we've seen over time is the leadership, the processes, and how you use these tools is how we create value from technologies. That might sound trivial, but it's actually not. Now, one of the advantages I think that I have is I get to work with the world's leading companies top-down and bottom-up. So in the last couple of months, I've been working with Honeywell leadership and L'Oreal leadership. That gives me kind of a top-down view. What do they struggle with? What do they know? What's hard, what not so much? But then also the bottom-up, working with teams and then also being inspired by startups, right? So I see from very large companies to small companies, because there's so many who started to use these tools. Now, with my company, we try to innovate. So we're trying to give away our secret sauce. Everything I learned, we tried to package in these playbooks and hand them on. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is a little bit around the innovation playbook. That's one playbook composed of several. But before I start, I'm actually going to get you to work today. Who of you thought you came here to listen and not work? Not going to happen. I'm Swiss. We make others work, okay? So what I want you to do, just for a minute, very short minute, I want you to reflect on innovation. On innovation. I just want you to talk in groups of 2 with your seat neighbor. Pick a seat neighbor. What is innovation? Define innovation in 1 minute, okay? And everybody needs to talk. Whoever is not having a conversation is going to miserably fail with innovation in the future, okay? So let's go. 1 minute. What is innovation? Okay, just have a conversation. Have a quick conversation. Okay. Let's do this together. So I'm not so much interested in your answer, but I'm curious about what did you talk about? So the reason I asked this question, it sounds very trivial, but when we say innovation, often the first thing people think about is technology. Technology is a means to an end, right? So, but who of you did talk about technology? It's okay, because it's a means to an end, okay? Who of you actually talked about customers? Users, customers, right? Same category. Who of you talked about the team, the stakeholders, the employees? No? Who of you talked about society? Creating value for... Who of you talked about creating value? Creating value. Okay, so there is no right and wrong. It's not like natural science, right? What is innovation? But the way I kind of define it is creating value for customers in new ways, creating value for your company in new ways, maybe new business models, creating value maybe for your team in new ways, because happy people will create more value, creating value for society in new ways, business models that actually have a positive impact, okay? So at the end of the day, what's the common denominator I talked about all the time? Creating value in new ways. So what we're going to do now is have a look at three things. I'll try to kind of get through these 3. I probably put too many slides. The first one is the biggest challenge of any established company. As soon as you're not a startup, what becomes a black hole is the business you're running. Many companies, they just say, I don't have time to innovate. I have no money. I have no capital. That's a wrong mindset. But I'll show you how you actually need to do both. The second one, I'm going to show you how leaders who are really good at innovation don't believe in the best ideas. They have a hypothesis-driven approach, so they experiment a lot. And then after, I'm going to show you this idea of outcomes with playbooks a little bit. Okay, so we're going to start with the first one. And I'm also going to make it competitive, so I brought some Swiss chocolate. Fresh Swiss chocolate. But you have to win it. So one person is going to win it, and since it's a big box, you can share, okay? So how does innovation work? It always starts with an idea. It could be a technology. It could be a market opportunity. It could be an asset you have. So Amazon had a big, infrastructure. So instead of just doing e-commerce, they started with Amazon Web Services to sell the infrastructure. That was an asset that they started with. Okay, it doesn't always have to start with the customer problem. Then you search for the right solution. Product, value proposition, business model. Once you found that, after this search, you scale and you run the business. And scaling could be to 50 people, 100 people, 100,000 people. Who of you has ever heard of Nestle? Used to be a startup 150 years ago, okay? Now today it's not a startup, so most of their time, Nestle will spend time here. But the same is for small, medium-sized companies. They spend a lot of time running the company. So we have time here, we have key performance indicators, KPIs. Now here's the challenge. Most established companies, they take what they know from here, running a business, and they apply it to innovation. But these two worlds are very different. This is a world that looks more like the startup world. It's a different mindset than this one. And there's no value judgment, they're just different, okay? They're different. Now, what we're gonna look at, we call this explore and exploit. And academics often call this the ambidextrous organization, but I left academia a long time ago to work with businesses. If I use the word ambidextrous, a lot of my business people will run away. So we just say explore, exploit, okay? So we're gonna play a game, if the internet works with us. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. I'm gonna give you 3 terms, and you tell me, does that term go into exploration, innovation, exploitation, running the business, or does the term go into both worlds, okay? 1, 2, 3, 3 categories. So let's see if we can make it work. We'll discover, pull out your phones. And as a reminder, you're competing for Swiss chocolate. Not Belgian chocolate, the real thing, Swiss chocolate, okay? So, let me see. I'll switch here up, if this works. Okay, so we already have a couple of you in. So, as I told you, I'm going to give you 3 terms, and each time you just need to tell me, does it go in explore, innovation, exploit, running the business, or does it go into both? Now here's the thing, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And there will only be one winner in this room who will have bragging rights to be at least the most knowledgeable innovator, okay? So it's not just about Swiss chocolate, it's about pride as well, okay? So let's go. Speed matters. The faster you answer, the more points you get. The first question, business plans, business cases, project plans are a useful tool to plan exploration, exploitation, or both. Business plans are a great tool. Okay? So, what do you think? Okay. So, 22 got it right. We have the rest of you, 54, who got it wrong. Business plans are the death penalty of innovation. Business plans are actually the best way to maximize the probability of wasting a lot of money. Why? Because we invest in an idea. So if you have an idea and you write a business plan and now you're asking an investor for money and the investor gives you money to execute the business plan, what are you going to do? If I give you $10 million, if I give engineers or scientists $10 million, what are they going to do? They're going to spend it on building something. So we'll execute the plan. What you need to do in innovation is experiment to figure out if it's a good plan, and you'll be willing to throw away the plan very fast, okay? So business plans are a great execution tool. They're a terrible innovation tool or startup tool, okay? And I'll get closer into that. Second one. Analysis, analyzing an idea. Asking, is this a good idea, a bad idea? Thinking hard about the idea reduces risk in exploration, exploitation, or both. Analyzing an idea to figure out if it's a good idea. Looking for all the data. Searching. Is that good or bad? Okay. So I'll admit this was a trick question. Analysis is good, always. But here's the thing. most established companies, and sometimes even startups, will overthink and under-experiment. If you're innovating, you're doing something new, there is no data to judge if it's good or not. You don't know. You haven't been in, who of you has been in the future? You have. Okay. One of you. So if you haven't been in the future, you do not know if it's a good idea in innovation. In exploitation, yes, your experience of running a company, building a business will help you execute. But in innovation, how can we decrease risk? We talk to customers very quickly. We try out things before we spend on building. Sounds trivial. Most engineers and companies, and in particular established ones, will build something first and then figure out, oh, there was no customer interest. Who of you has ever been involved in that idea that looked good on paper, you invested in it, either as a leader or as an investor, and then it turned out to fail? Okay, like all of us, okay? And whoever doesn't have their hand up is probably not honest or hasn't done it so far, okay? So, halftime report. Halftime report. Who is, okay. Sarav? Who's Sarav? Hands up? Okay, you have a target on your back. Everybody's hunting you for Swiss chocolate, okay? So, we have one chance to get close, and then we have 3 more questions later on. It's easy to distinguish between good and bad ideas early on in an exploration, exploitation, or both context. On seeing if it's a good idea or bad idea. Knowing if it's a good idea or bad idea. This is not a trick question, but I think here we should get more right ones. So if it's truly innovation, you do not know if it's going to work or not. Who of you in the room is a CEO? Okay, now here's the challenge for CEOs. If you have an idea, you think it's going to work, right? What is the problem with the CEO's baby, with their ideas? Nobody's going to tell the CEO their baby's ugly. Okay, it's dangerous. Now, you have some very rare CEOs who are not delusional. I'm a CEO. I'm always delusional. So I need my team to do the reality check, right? So in innovation, and I'll show you the mechanisms to actually invest, you don't know if it's a good idea or not. So it looks like we have a new leader. Okay, it's going to accumulate. Okay, MSD, hands up. Okay, you now have a chance to win, but we have 3 more questions later on, okay? So not done yet, sorry. Okay, so why am I showing this? So with all of the leaders I work with, the last time I showed this actually to the CEO of L'Oreal, I show them how this world is different. When we run a business, predictability is higher, which means we know the customer, we know the value proposition, we know the supply chain. There's never zero unpredictability, right? Because we have COVID, we have, the White House, and so on, okay? That was an attempt to make a Swiss joke, but I know our humor is not very funny, okay? We have good tennis players, but our humor is not very good. Actually, that's not true. Talking about humor, you know who the funniest Swiss is? Anybody know? Trevor Noah. Okay, you would not classify him as a Swiss, but he has a Swiss father, okay? Just in case you didn't know. So, in innovation, uncertainty is really high, and we need to admit that, so we experiment instead of planning, okay? Now here's a big one for investments, and it's the same for big and small companies. Here we make big bets because we need a big return and we know it's going to work. Often here we make big bets, but we shouldn't. What we need to do is, like in venture capital, I think some of you are venture capitalists, we make small bets, but we kill a lot of ideas very quickly. So I'll show you how to do that. Which means now, here comes the leadership challenge. For all of us who lead a company, here we ask the traditional questions on time, on budget. Here, it's what did we learn? Should we kill the idea? Or should we change it and continue to invest? It's a very different mindset. But here's what's important. As a leader, as a CEO, sometimes I need to take the execution mindset. I'm running the business. And then 2 minutes later, I'm talking to my product team and they're innovating. I need to change the questions and the KPIs in my head. Not a lot of leaders are consciously toggling between the two, okay? Some are, naturally. Bracken Darrell, who used to be CEO of Logitech, he consciously, toggles. Jeff Bezos consciously toggles between the two. Others don't. No names shall be revealed. But now, how do you manage that? So I'll give you an example. I'll give you a big company and then a small company. So here's a big company that said, we need to do business model innovation. And this gentleman here, Uwe, was tasked with trying to get Bosch, a very conservative German company, to innovate. So this was his task. Now, they eventually succeeded to come up with 19 potential winners, and then they pushed it a little bit further. But to get to 19 winners, how many ideas do you think they invested in? So the question to you now, and I want you to discuss for 30 seconds, really short, did they invest in 19 ideas to get 19 winners? Did they invest in 43, 108, 214, or 926? Discuss with your team for a second. Over 3 years, okay? Over 3 years. But remember, who of you has ever been to Germany or worked with a German company? Bosch is a very conservative company. So if you say 900, look at the numbers here. You basically say they burnt 100 million euro. Because I'm not saying explore ideas, it's not free, it costs money, okay? So discuss for 30 seconds. What do you think they did? With your team, with your group, with your table. How many ideas did they invest in to get 19 winners? Just 30 seconds, let's go. Okay. Who would say it was 19? German conservative company. Who would say 19? Okay, we got one person who says 19. Who would say 43? Okay, so a couple of you. Who would say 108? Okay, you clearly have never worked with a German company before. Who would say 214? Okay. Who would say 926? You better go to Germany once. Just okay. So the reality is, they were pretty bold. Okay, they were pretty bold. But think of it. They have 400,000 employees and they're making almost 100 billion in revenue. Even like what they should do is about 1,000. But I didn't ask what they should do. I asked what they did. So they were pretty bold. They did 214 over 3 years. But here's the thing, and this is the important lesson. They gave them 3 months. They gave them 3 months, and the 120,000 euro or dollars was mainly the time of people. No out of the pocket. It was the salaries of people. But what did they do after 3 months? They asked, what's the evidence that this is a good idea? And they killed, after that, they killed 65% of the projects. So you'd ask, well, why would they start 200 to kill 65? Because you don't know. So what was the task the team had? The team had to go and talk to customers, and if the customers didn't have the problem here, then the project would get killed. So a very simple experiment, talking to customers. Now that sounds trivial, but what do most companies do? They build a prototype before talking to customers. So you already wasted $10,000 or $10 million. So the second phase is then about testing the solution. So then they maybe build a prototype, a minimal viable product. And again, at the end, they need to show the evidence that customers actually like the solution or maybe even willing to pay. And again, they kill 74% of projects. So 10%, 19, make it through this funnel. And I talked to Uwe this summer. He said of those 19, actually only 2 became multi-billion-dollar businesses. So think of it, it's 1% that makes it to this size. Now, if you're a smaller business, I'll give you an example. You don't need to explore 200 because you're also not angling for $1 billion. But if you're angling for $1 billion in return in innovation, you probably need to have a funnel that broad. So most companies do not have this today. The companies we start to work with, they might go for 10, 20 per year, so they get closer to this. But now, here's the thing. First is customer, second is the value proposition, and the third is the solution, kind of willingness to pay for the solution. So now, that's a large company. Let me give you a small company, Swiss company. So this is a family-owned company. Mike and Julie took over from their father. And they have a company called Laura Star. Anybody ever heard of Laura Star? Well, if you want a really iron, which I think many of you say, I don't care about steam iron, but they have high-end steam irons that they market around the world. Like really, really good and really, really expensive. They export to everywhere around the planet. So they said, we're going to innovate. And they came up with the Iggy. The Iggy is a handheld steamer. So you can travel with a steamer. But who wants to travel with a steamer? So they built the product. So they kind of got that one wrong. But then they said, oh, Eve and Alex are friends of ours. Like, how do we do this really? So we told them, what you really want to do is create a funnel. So they created that kind of funnel. And they came up with a different use for the Iggy. They realized people wanted to, it was COVID also, they wanted to sanitize their apartment. They wanted to kill germs. So at the beginning, they were a bit shy, and they said, you can iron your clothes or steam your clothes, and you can, disinfect your apartment. But they weren't confident enough to go full. But the lesson I want you to take away here is this company, so not as big, would say, okay, we're going to start with this explore, exploit idea, and we have 14 ideas, but we're too small to explore 14 ideas. So they narrowed it down to 3. So 3 teams took 20% of their time to explore. One team looked at the hospitality industry because, COVID, you had to disinfect rooms really fast. How do you do that? Oh, there's this Iggy thing. Then they looked at hospitals, and then they looked at the mass market. And then they kind of figured out the mass market selling through the internet would be their best bet. So they went for that. That was then the first iteration of the Iggy. So they moved towards one that they executed where they didn't go full on disinfecting the home. They still kind of wanted this steamer thing for the clothes. Now, if I look at the business model, so I'm going to sketch this out with the business model canvas. We have high-end devices for the mass market sold to retail. They earn money from transactional sales. So high-end devices, mass market, selling through retail, and direct, the internet, earning transactional sales. The products are here, the key activities are here, and this is the cost. Now, if you have this business model, the question to you, if you have this business model, what is the challenge? The challenge of this business model is, call it out. What do you see? What value you're giving? Okay, that we could go deeper. But there's a problem with the business model, not the value proposition. Competition could be? No recurring revenue, okay? So we have one business model thinker in this room. Everybody else, no, you got the answer. Everybody else has to catch up. So the problem with this is the non-recurring revenue. So there's this concept that one of our coaches came up with, is there are 3 types of revenue: variable, predictable, and fixed revenue. Okay? Now here's the challenge. The revenue from selling stuff is not as good as the revenue coming from other sources that are more recurring. So if you're looking at the valuation of a company, transactional revenues, or how he calls it, variable revenues, Michael Wilkins came up with this, is 3 to 5 times EBITDA. If you have predictable revenues like subscriptions or fixed revenue like long-term service contracts, this is valued a lot more. So now, if I'm an owner of a company, what am I going to try to do? Not just to innovate product to create value, of course that's basics. I'm going to try to create more predictable revenue, which could be service, doesn't have to be service. It could be other kinds of subscriptions. So in their case, they had this in mind, so they came up with the Laura Star Aura. You'd say, oh, another device. That's true, but they had an idea, or they tried to find out, how could we turn the LoRa Star Aura not just into a device that we sell, but once they have it, we do something like the Nespresso machine. Who of you has ever seen a Nespresso, Swiss coffee machine? You have these pods that you put in. That's a recurring revenue, right? And it was protected until the patents ran out. So they said, we're going to copy the Nespresso business model and do the same thing. So they came up with the Aura, which looks like...
Introducing LoRa Star Aura, the advanced steam purifier. An innovation in lightweight, ergonomic, Swiss design, and engineering for cleaning and purifying your home, powered by patented LoRa Star ThermoPur technology. LoRa Star Aura generates a constant flow of very high temperature, dry microfine steam, a 100% natural scented steam from a fragranced wooden tab, a device designed around living, purifying and cleaning any part of your home with no chemicals, and restoring the original finish of any surfaces. A way to live healthier and sleep better. Elevate your well-being at home. LoRa Star Aura, the advanced.
So first thing here, do you see how they completely changed the market? Nothing around ironing your clothes or steaming your clothes. It was all about health and well-being, to disinfect your home, and the scent. So do you see this little thing here? You maybe saw it in the video. This little thing was actually not so easy to invent because they said they want no chemicals. And how do you create scent without chemicals? Well, wood. But that's not easy, so that actually the home smells good. So they figured that out. But this means, what does this now mean? We have the Nespresso pod, the equivalent of the coffee pod. So in the business model, if we go back to this, they said, okay, it's still transactional, but we're going to create with this pod a continuous interaction because they're going to come back to buy the little wooden things from us as soon as they're not useful anymore, okay? So we have now here this consumable. And with the consumable, we actually also have a lock-in because you can't buy any other consumables, and they have patents on top of that. And most interesting, now they start to have a recurring revenue. Is it a big revenue? No. But here's the thing. Recurring revenues are exponential. You have one, you'll have it forever if they come back and use these things. So they go up much steeper than the transactional sales. So it's simple things like this that you can invent. They happen over time, but what you need to do is have the mindset to explore. Now, let me talk to you just quickly about AI, because the business principles, I'm a big fan of the fundamentals. They don't change. The technology changes, and yes, this is a crazy, technology in terms of, I don't know if you use it, I use it, like it's insane what you can do. But we won't be able to reap the benefits of this if we don't do the basics of business. So if I show you this, some of you might have read this MIT report where they say, 95% of these generative AI things, they don't actually even work. My hypothesis is that most companies actually apply the rules of exploit here to explore, and that's why they can't use AI. That's why they're getting no results. If you kind of do what we're saying, you explore a lot, the winning ideas around AI will emerge. You don't pick the winning ideas. Yes, you can copy. That's always a legitimate strategy. But the winning ideas, they emerge, okay? So, if we look at the principles of business, let me see if my thing follows here. Business models, management mindset, and operating model. On the left-hand side is everything that changes through AI. And on the right-hand side is everything that stays stable. So left-hand side, yes, we will have completely new business models and completely new value propositions. A lot of it will be predictive, a lot of it will be ultra-personalized. What doesn't change? We still need to find profitable business models and create value for customers. So that sounds trivial, but that's the hard part. Finding value for customers and a business model that can scale. The technology is the easy part, to be honest. And it's actually very cheap for all of us to access. Okay, for $20, you get access to really cool stuff. Okay, management mindset. I believe the explorers will win over the exploiters. It's not going to be enough to be good at running a company. I think there's still opportunities to make a better business, but as we heard in the introduction, some of us are going to get irrelevant if we just run a business. So I like to say, if you're better managing a dying business, you're just more efficiently dying. Who of you is in an industry that is likely to get disrupted by AI? None of you? What? All of us? Okay, so if you're just improving your business, you're more effectively dying, okay, with your dying business. Okay? Now that was not supposed to be a joke, because it is the reality of a lot of companies, right? So, on the right-hand side, this entrepreneurial mindset and leaders that are entrepreneurial, and I think a lot of you are, because otherwise you wouldn't be here, is going to dominate. This is the golden age of the entrepreneur, I believe. Okay? It's never been as easy to access a lot of these things. Operating model, everything's going to be faster. Everybody says that, but I think you've seen it with AI. It's just crazy. Also, how fast you can experiment. I'll get back to that. And then on the right-hand side, new growth comes from balancing explore, exploit. And you need to be able to experiment. So my next part here is on experimentation. Who of you today would say, whoops, you're already world-class at experimenting with new ideas, with new value propositions and new business models? Don't be shy. Who of you is already world-class? Who of you is already good? I mean, come on, I don't believe that. Some of you are, right? Okay. Who would like to get a lot better? Okay, everybody else can leave now because that's what I'm going to talk about. If you didn't have your hand up, like, it's going to be a bit boring. So if we look at the process of innovation, there are two big categories that we need to be good at. The first is business design. And when I say business design, I mean what I've showed you before. Business models with recurring revenues. That's an example. Great value proposition, that's business design. And business design is all this, ideation and creativity, all that blah, blah, and then prototyping business model canvases and value proposition canvases. Then we look at, is this good? Then we assess. But here's the thing, and this happens a lot in established companies. We put an idea on paper, and then we write a business plan. And the problem with business plans is what my friend and colleague Steve Blank says, is that there's a fine line between vision and hallucination. And again, nobody tells the CEO their baby's ugly, okay? So what we need to do is ask, what are the hypotheses? So we need to get into this testing mindset and test. If you don't do that, here's what you end up with. So we all kind of look up to Silicon Valley, but I'll show you the kind of the funny side of Silicon Valley. Who of you has heard of this company called Forward Health? Can't see it very well. Forward Health. They said we're going to build the autonomous doctor's office because doctors, nurses, admin is expensive. So you go to this doctor's office. There'd be no doctors. There'd be no nurses. You just interact with machines, right? The patient would come in. The problem was they opened these offices throughout North America, and no patients showed up. Okay, so they were pretty empty. No doctors, no nurses, no admin, no patients. Okay, that's not a good business model. So they said, what do we say in Silicon Valley? We're going to pivot. So they pivoted, and they said, if the patients don't come to us, we will go to the patients. So they created care pods. So they said, these care pods, and these were AI-driven care pods, okay? They said, now people will come. Turns out nobody wanted these care pods, okay? So what happened is they went bankrupt. And I don't want to make fun of them because their vision was great. They wanted to make this healthcare a bit more accessible. How much money can you burn with a startup like this? What's your guess? Give me a number. 10 million? 200 million? 300 million? Not a couple of billion. But you know Silicon Valley, that's the AI age. The AI age, we burn tens of billions, right? So they just burnt $650 million. What a small amount, right? But it's complete waste. Now, you'd say, oh, but it was a startup, they didn't have very experienced people. Well, turns out their CEO was pretty experienced. Their CEO was reporting to Sergey Brin. So you'd say, well, that's an experienced person. What mistake did they make? Or what mistake did the VCs make? Who of you is a venture capitalist? What mistake did they make? They gave engineers a lot of money. Don't give engineers a lot of money. By the way, Vinod Khosla would frame this in a different way. He says, the more money you give a startup, the likelier they are to fail. Weird, right? But it's true. Because when you have little amounts of money, you will experiment, and you give them more, the more attraction you have, right? So the key to the new type of management for exploration, I'm not talking exploitation, different world. Exploration, you experiment. You ask, what's the hypothesis that I need to test? You run experiments. You learn from these experiments. And then you either go back and change the idea here, or you go on and test. Or you kill the whole project. Remember Uwe with Bosch? You kill the idea. That's okay. And that's actually the business model of venture capital. You know that most ideas are going to fail, so you invest in many. Okay? So that's the principle. Now, let's have a look at this, how this really works, okay? So, if we have explore, exploit, and we go into this left-hand side, there are 3 types of risks, 3 types of hypotheses you need to test for any new idea. Desirability, do people want it? Feasibility, can we actually build and scale it? And viability, can we make more money from it than we spend? Now, I'm going to talk about evidence-based. And I'm already going to tell you what evidence is not. So I worked with one of the top two food companies. One of the top 2 food companies. And I said, we need to test desirability, feasibility, viability. They told me, Alex, we test viability early on. I said, wow, you're pretty advanced. How do you test viability? And they told me, we make spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are not evidence in innovation. You know what a spreadsheet is in innovation? A fantasy made explicit. So you don't invest in the spreadsheet, but don't get me wrong. I want the spreadsheet at the beginning because I need to know, could this be a big idea? But everybody needs to know the spreadsheet is a fantasy. So what we do is we run experiments to support the spreadsheet with evidence. So if we do willingness to pay experiments, then we know people are willing to pay. What price? So we can run these experiments, okay? So let's have a look how this kind of looks like. Instead of investing in an idea and saying, is this good or bad? What do? We take this scorecard. So we have this innovation scorecard. I'll show you how it works. And then at every phase, we score the idea and we score it for making progress. And this is exactly how Bosch did it. They killed ideas based on evidence that exists, or if evidence is not there, they kill the idea. Okay, let me make this concrete. So what's an experiment? Sounds kind of, what is an experiment? It's like in science. You take a hypothesis, customers are willing to pay. What could you do? You could talk to them. Do you have a budget for this? Yes. Have you ever paid for similar products? Yes. You see how now we're creating evidence to support the spreadsheet? Before we build it. Because most companies, they start with feasibility. Wrong thing to do. So now the problem with interviews is the evidence is very light. What people say is not what they do. Another experiment, like card sort. Who of you has ever personally run a business experiment like this? Talk to customers to learn about an idea. Who's ever done that? Okay, who of you has talked to a customer in the last 24 hours? In the last 7 days? Who hasn't talked to a customer the last month? Okay, nobody dares to put their hand up now, right? So let me show you what card sort is. There's this company, this was a startup called ShapeScale, and they had this idea for...
Imagine you step on a scale that not only reads your weight, but also scans your entire body in just a few seconds. Once your scale has synced with your smartphone app, you know exactly how your body has been changing over time. You will be able to visualize where you've been gaining muscle and where you've been losing body fat.
Okay, I was obviously the model for that advertising, right? Don't laugh, that's unfair. Okay, so what they did is this is what you call card sort experiment. They said, we want to build an application for this scale, but we don't know which features are going to work best. So, and not from a technical point of view. So they came up with all of these features, and they made cards, okay? So here, you have different things like tracking muscle, track measurement. Here you have, this is what I call the Champions League thing, when you drink too much beer and watch too much football. Okay, see, that joke never flies. Nobody ever laughs anywhere in the world. And let me try another one. This is, if you don't laugh, I'm going to be really sad. This is the Kardashian model, where you track volume. I think you laugh to just be friendly with me. But so the point is, they put these cards in front of the customers, and rather than just asking, what do you want, they said, could you force rank these? And it turns out that some features would outperform and some features would underperform. Now that's just one experiment. The best teams run 10 experiments like this. We actually now have about a yardstick with all the companies we work with, not startups, but large companies. It's one experiment per week. So the best teams get to 10 to 12 experiments, okay? Here's another one. Instead of building something, you could make a brochure or a spec sheet of a solution. So this is a company, that American Family Insurance, they wanted to build a new insurance or create a new insurance for farmers. But they didn't know if farmers would be interested. So what did they do? They made a brochure, they went to a convention, they gave the brochure here to farmers at the convention, and then they talked to them. But that's not all they did. They said, what people say is not what people do. So they did what you call a call to action experiment, CTA. Can you see here is the value proposition. Here, they ask, if you're interested, after the convention, call us or write us an email. That's a call to action. So if people say they're interested, but they never call or never send an email, how interested are they? 0, right? Or there's something more important. So in this case, 15% responded. The cattle farmers responded more than the corn farmers, so they changed the value proposition and the marketing methods. So before building the product or working with compliance to make it for one type of farmer or the others, they experimented with a simple prototype. Now, you might know GE. They make jet engines. They do these kind of things for spec sheets for their clients before building even prototypes. So it could be even in industrial tech, okay? So the principle here is you start with very light experiments and cheap experiments when you don't know if it's going to work, and you invest more and more, the more you know it's going to work. Now, what if we want really strong evidence? Something really strong. In business to business, there's this thing called letters of intent. A letter of intent will have more value and show more commitment. So this was a startup called Fenks. They wanted to use mineral waste, turn it into insulation foams so you could spray the foams into buildings. So that's kind of how they oriented their business model. But here's how they got to really strong evidence before actually turning that into foam, because they started with panels. They didn't know if they could turn it into foam, but they had a hunch they could. But they knew they should do it when 4 construction companies said, we're going to sign a letter of intent to buy from you if you make this. You see how that's strong evidence? The product didn't exist. So rather than spending money first on building stuff, this is how you get evidence, okay? And then there's the Wizard of Oz thing where you actually make people believe the solution exists when it doesn't. So let me give you one from the 1980s. So before ChatGPT, in 1984, IBM tested speech recognition to immediately write what you said onto the screen, okay? Now, here's how they tested if people would be interested. You had a person going into an office, You had a microphone. The person would speak into the microphone, and the text would magically appear on the screen. 1984, okay? But what the people who were doing that didn't know, there was a wire that went to the back office, and you had an admin who was typing the text. So what just happened? The technology doesn't exist, so we didn't prove we can build it, but we did experiment with the user to understand, are they interested? How would they interact with it? This is what you call Wizard of Oz, from the story Wizard of Oz, where it looks real to the test subject, but it's not yet scalable. Why would you do that? To learn if people desire the product. And when they desire it, then you can start to build. Do you see the difference? Okay. So now that we have all of that, let's compete for Swiss chocolate, okay? So the principles here is you start with the cheapest experiments. You don't build anything at the beginning. You increase the confidence in the idea by running multiple experiments for the same hypothesis. First, you talk to people. Are you willing to pay? Do you have a budget? Okay. But then you run pricing experiments where you actually simulate a transaction. So you get stronger and stronger evidence. And then you always pick the experiments with the strongest evidence. So now, let's see who of you actually paid attention. Pull out your phones. And we're going to compete for Swiss chocolate with the last 3 questions. Okay? So I want you to go to your phone. And let's see. We have halftime report. MSD, hands up, MSD. Okay, we're all hunting you now. We're all hunting you now with 3 questions. The next question is, and again, speed matters. The next question, are you all ready? Ready? Okay, we got 50 players, good start, let's go. And this first one's really easy. The first one's really easy. Which statement is true of the following statements? Which statement is true? Business plans are a prerequisite for success. Large initial investments make it easier to succeed. Good and bad ideas are hard to distinguish early on in the process. If anybody votes for business plan, you got to leave the room, okay? Okay, still some of you still believe in business plans. I can guarantee you they do not work for innovation, okay? Good tool for exploitation, bad tool for innovation. Okay, next question. This one is still straightforward. The last one's going to be a bit harder. What should most increase your confidence in an innovation project? Large-scale surveys, a strong spreadsheet with great numbers, experiments that get customers to do something, the opinion of the highest paid person in the room. If you vote for the last, then you're probably a VC. Okay, so that was a bad joke. Okay, look, you listen. Now, these were easy. The last one is a trick question. It's framed in a difficult way, okay? So the last one is framed in a difficult way. It's not that hard, but it's framed like brain gymnastics. Which statement is wrong? Incorrect. Which statement is wrong? Hypotheses make the risk of an idea explicit. Business plans really don't matter for innovation projects. A product that customers love will always lead to innovation success. This is a trick question, of course. Because what is wrong? Okay, 37 of you got it correct. So you can have a great product and still fail. Why? Because you're spending more money than you're earning. Which sounds, again, trivial, but a lot of startups, they go bankrupt because they don't earn money at all because they build something nobody wants. Or they don't have a scalable business model, okay? So I can give you $1. If it costs me $2, it's going to be a wildly successful product, but it's going to be a terrible business model, okay? So seems to make sense. Why am I emphasizing this? Because most companies focus on product and testing product. We start immediately from business model. And the difference can be multi-million dollars. If you focus on business models, you will be more successful and build more sustainable business models. Okay, but what we really all want to know, you're waiting for the winner of this wonderful Swiss chocolate, which you cannot get in the mass market. It's Sprüngli. Okay. looks like we have a new winner, Bala. Where's Bala? Okay, applause, applause, applause. Okay, wonderful. So you have bragging rights at least for being the most knowledgeable, okay? The most knowledgeable person when it comes to innovation. So now, okay, let me bring this all together. So very quickly, this is how you score ideas. I want you to be able to score ideas. The example I'm going to give you is an old one. This is Tesla pre-Elon Musk, okay, pre-Elon Musk. The founders, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, they had this vision of the Roadster. But when they started, and Mark gives a wonderful talk, when they started, they didn't know how to succeed, so they tested their ideas. So the first experiment they did is they put the existing electric vehicles in front of people and asked them, what do you think of these cars? This is how electric vehicles looked before Tesla, okay? So this is Mark talking about it.
Why weren't these cars selling? Now, and some of these people were in San Carlos, I think, or Menlo Park or San Carlos. We used to go over and look at them.
Okay, so anybody know why these cars weren't selling? But the first thing they learned is the current buyers of electric vehicles are not our market. So they learned that their market is people in the US who want to buy a German car. Not an electric vehicle, a German car that happens to be an electric vehicle. So then they actually did another experiment, what you call a mashup. They bought a Lotus Elise and they turned it in what they would call an electric vehicle with a battery pack and everything, and put people inside, okay? So what did they learn? They learned a couple of things from this.
And by November, we were putting our battery pack, our drivetrain basically, into a Lotus Elise shell and our chassis. And this was to sort of test out, it was called a mule. You take parts from one car and parts from another. It isn't what's going to reproduce, but it was a...
Okay, so they got evidence from talking to people. But they said, that's not enough. What if we actually did a so-called call to action experiment? So here you have what you call a landing page. Some of you might have heard of this experiment called a landing page. So this is the original Tesla landing page, where here, if I just take a white pen here, you could sign up with your email. So they would get hundreds of people to go to the website and sign up if they were interested. Is that a strong experiment? Not so much. I mean, it doesn't cost you a lot for your email, but if you're not interested, you're not going to sign up. So they already had a little bit more evidence about how many people were interested. Then they said, okay, how could we get even stronger evidence? So they pre-sold 100 Tesla Roadsters before they were actually able to build them with a down payment of $100,000. So very quickly, 100 people bought the car. So you see how they went to stronger and stronger evidence? All of this before they had the final car. So they tested before, and this was the original page, they tested before building. And some of you might know, Elon Musk actually used this with the Model 3. They said, if you make a down payment of $5,000, we will reserve a Tesla Model 3 for you. Within a week, I think they got 200,000 down payments, or 300, somewhere between 200 and 300,000. $1,000. $5,000. So what happened then is Elon Musk took that evidence, he went to the banks, and he said, can you give me more money? But you see the power of evidence? Used in a slightly different way, but it's the power of evidence. If he just said, I had an idea, banks wouldn't have given him anything, okay? So now, what does that mean for us? Now you have a scoring system. You can score an idea. So we said, okay, we want to score ideas so management teams can score desirability, feasibility, and viability. So it's very simple. There's several levels of evidence. 0 is a spreadsheet made explicit. It has a fantasy. Business plan, 0 evidence, okay? Evidence is if we talk to people. Really strong evidence is if we get them to do something really with skin in the game. So now if we take this, and we take the Tesla example, we can score. This was very light. Because, maybe there was a prototype, but this boomerang, not really. But when they sat people into a car, they could actually feel, what does an electric vehicle feel like? And then if you take the call to action experiment, they get people to sign up by email. How can we make it even stronger? We can get them to make a down payment. Why is it not a level 5? Real evidence from real markets, because it's the first segment that they're selling to, okay? But so the point here was to be able to score an idea just like we've seen with Bosch, right? So the example I showed you before, this is the type of stuff that Bosch did. Okay, now, do you still have some energy? Because I've been talking a bit, I'll take a bit more time. Do you still have some energy to look at the innovation playbook? Who's still interested in hearing me talk about the innovation playbook? Okay, good. Who's not interested? You just vote with your feet, okay? That's absolutely fine. So now, with Strategyzer, we said, how can we make our approach more accessible? So we used to just work with large companies like Honeywell, L'Oreal, and so on, or Bosch. So we had this full service stack. We would do the coaching with our coaches of our programs, our playbooks, on our platform. And then we said, well, that's limited to a small part of the world. How can we scale this? So we said, we're going to take these programs, these playbooks, and we're going to make them accessible to anybody in the world, so companies can do it themselves, or consultants can do it with anybody who they want. This is a little bit what you did, but on the internet, right? So then we said, okay, playbooks and innovation, that's kind of our world. Those are our tools. What if we made a platform so anybody can create playbooks on any topic? And what I mean with playbooks is very simple. It's a step-by-step approach. So if I just take one we've seen, if we take Bosch, so this is a process. Process is complicated. We need to learn it. Nobody has time to learn. So we said, okay, the way we're going to do it is we're going to take this process and we're going to make it accessible to everybody. So the process is simple. You start by learning the tools. We looked at the business model canvas. There's other tools like the value proposition canvas. Then we show a team how to map out an idea with these tools. And then once you have the idea, after a day, you get out of the building and you talk to customers and you run experiments, like we've seen. Easy, run experiments. And then we present the evidence. And then we kill an idea or we go on. You follow the process? Okay. So that's what Bosch did. And they did this for IoT-enabled cold chains in agriculture. They went through this process so that they could either kill the idea or invest in the idea. And the idea took off. So this is exactly how they've done it with these kinds of playbooks. So now let me make this concrete. And this is going to be a bit fast, and you don't need to understand the details. But these are the steps of the process where you first learn about the concepts, okay, a little bit. The second step is you shape your idea. If I can make this work, here. You shape your idea, then you test your idea, and you synthesize the evidence, and then you make the decision. And by the way, you're going to get all the slides. But this is a lot of stuff, and we don't have time to learn. So what if we took that and we gave away this secret sauce in a playbook, like a workbook? Wouldn't that be cool? So everything we learned from Bosch, from L'Oreal, from Honeywell, we package that and we put it into something simple. So what we said is we're going to create a platform where you have the steps, where you go through step 1, step 2, step 3. So we handhold people through the steps. And some steps require learning, okay? So like here, you're getting the advantage of me kind of teaching you directly, or a way to do it is with videos. That's the e-learning part. But you get the ideas, you get the concepts. But nobody has time to learn. What we really want to do is create an outcome, a result. So what if we take the first outcome we need to create? When we innovate, we need to map out a business model. So you first watch a video, and then you start to create that business model in a digital tool, a digital visual workspace. Okay, what was the next step after we sketched out our ideas? Anybody remember? What do we do as soon as we have this business design done? No! Feasibility is not what we need to do. Are you an engineer? What do we do before feasibility? Desirability, okay? So, what's the simplest tool we've created is a tool called the customer profile, which you can quickly create. But here's the thing. Then you get people to get out of the building to interview. So we said, what if we created a tool where it automatically creates the interview for you? So you go through this tool, you interview customers, and it immediately synthesizes that for you. So step by step, and it helps you do things. So innovation doesn't need to be complicated. It's super straightforward to do this, okay? Now, let me give you a different approach of how you can use AI to think about value propositions. Who of you in your business ever had to think about how your products and services create value for your customers, to articulate not the features, but the value proposition? Who of you has ever worked on formulating the value proposition? Who of you has ever used AI to help you formulate the value proposition? Okay, it's very powerful. So let me give you kind of just the big picture playbook. So we created this playbook because we've seen a lot of engineers, in particular in large companies like Honeywell, they have a hard time articulating their value proposition. So we said, what do you really need? You need a product description. You need an understanding of the customer. We call this the customer profile and the solution. And then you need an LLM. You need AI of your choice. I like using ChatGPT. And you take that and put it into a great value proposition. So first step, understanding customer, jobs, pains, and gains. Okay? What do they care about? Second step, what are the features that your customers care about most? Once you have that, you take these three, product description, deep understanding of your customer, deep understanding of the features they care about, and then you throw it into an LLM, and out comes, magically, a great description of how you're creating value. You do not need to think anymore. You can do this in a very short time frame. So I did this for Strategyzer, for the playbooks. So we take a product description, we rank the customer jobs, pains, and gains, we rank the features, not based on our understanding, but based on customer understanding, and we throw this into an LLM. So technically it looks like this, a bit of text. We turn this into text, don't even need to turn it into text. Then we take that, and magically, with a prompt, it helps you create that value proposition description based on what you did. But the point here is, I didn't immediately go to, hey, ChatGPT, create a value proposition for me, because I need to do some groundwork. I do need to understand the customer. I do need to understand which features they value. So that's back to business basics. With LLMs, we cut corners, but we actually won't get there faster in many cases. So the business basics still apply. So when I do this with this kind of prompt, it spits out 3 different results, okay? Results without the theory was the first prototype, then it comes up with a second prototype, and a third alternative. So it gives me, in a matter of milliseconds, 3 alternatives, and I can start working from there. It's much faster. Faster than your marketing team could do this. So marketing as a profession completely changes. Do you see what I'm talking about here? So it's not a text, writer anymore. It's proving things. So then I did a second one. I said, okay, now I want you to focus just on my customers' main jobs, main pains, main gains. Create me different alternatives. So again, within milliseconds, it creates a prototype for me, or 3 prototypes. Main customer job, main pain reliever, main gain creator. So immediately, without a marketing department, I get stuff there, and then if I have a marketing department, I can iterate. But so the ways we work will change. The business fundamentals, customers, value proposition, and iteration will not change. Now, once I have this, so I just spit out 3 different alternatives. What's the next step I would need to do? I came up with 3 possible descriptions of a value proposition. How do I know which one's the best? I could talk to customers. Even better is a so-called A/B test. I test 3 different solutions, each one with 1,000 people, and I look which one performs best. So talking to customers is one. More effective is what you call A/B tests. But so what I showed you that applies to innovation also applies to execution. Okay, so these are the kind of playbooks. I have another playbook, but I think in the interest of time, I'm going to actually stop here and we can go to questions. For the last playbook, I'll do some marketing for a free product. We have a webinar on the playbook to run strategy sessions. Who of you has ever been in a bad strategy session? Okay. Now, because you run them on your own, you got to be careful what you're saying, right? So I've been in a lot of bad strategy sessions because the leaders we work with, they're not experts of strategy sessions, they're expert of their content. So what we said is, why don't we write a playbook on strategy sessions? So what we're going to show you in the webinar is the strategy sessions we run for large companies of which you all know the names, because it's pretty accessible and it's just about playbooks and processes. Anyways, I'm going to stop there. I do hope you learned a little bit of something. So we did have a great audience, right? So, but thank you for paying attention. Okay, yeah.
Do you have a mic here?
The mic is still fine, yeah. And I apologize for the lacking Swiss humor.
First of all, thanks, Alex. I think I'm a lot more optimistic than I thought I would be at the end of this session. And I think we picked up some nuggets which are pointers at least.
Okay.
Start a process of.
Yeah.
First question is strategy, growth, and competition in the age of AI. Dr. Alex, in the AI era, what are the biggest strategy blind spots you're seeing among established companies?
Okay, so I'll give you the very, very biggest strategy blind spot is this. If we can put on the slides, can you put the slides back on? So the biggest blind spot is, we can get this back up, is this, that companies are 99% focused on running the business, and they're really bad, from the selection that I see, they're really bad at experimenting with new ideas. So remember I talked to you about the dual mindset, explore, exploit? Many companies, they actually have managerial leaders, not entrepreneurial leaders. Entrepreneurial leaders are good at running the business and exploring at the same time. And I think that's the biggest blind spot, is that we have great managers in the companies I work with, but again, like that's a broad statement of my view on the companies I work with. And we do not have enough entrepreneurial leaders. That might be very different in this room, okay? So I can't speak for the people here, but the companies I work with, and this is not a value judgment, they just grew up running a company. And I have CEOs who tell me, Alex, I don't know how to do exploration. So they're very honest about these things.
I think we've answered this question. Answered. Next one. Could you share examples of companies that have successfully used strategies or playbooks on to reinvent themselves through AI?
Through AI, I would say it's very early, because exploration of bolder ideas, not just in innovation in the core engine of improving the business, does take 3 years or so. So today, and you'd be surprised actually, today most companies that come to us, they do not come to us with the mandate to implement AI innovations. They don't. They just say, help us explore, and some of the teams will work on AI, most of them don't. So when everybody tells me all the innovation budgets are going to AI, I can't confirm that. Now, I can't talk for other companies than the ones we work with. All they say is, and I won't give you the name, but one of the large companies we work with, they say, oh, Alex, we understand we applied the exploitation playbook to exploration. Just help us explore more. And they don't narrow it down to AI. But the point is if they know how to explore, AI will be a side benefit which they will be able to explore. So again, it's the management basics to a certain extent that will help you apply.
Something you've been reiterating all the time.
Yes.
This question, you could see the question.
Yeah? You have not? Okay, we see it on it. You have not assessed the role of culture in this. Yeah. Well, yeah. Excellent. If you want me to talk about culture, you're going to have to bring me here for a day, okay? So there are a couple of core themes. Culture is one that we obviously need to look at. And it's very simple. I'll give you a story. I worked with one company, digital company, about 7,000 people. The CEO said, "Oh, Alex, I get it. I need to infect everybody with the innovation virus." He was thinking, "Oh, that's culture." I said, "Oh, what did I do wrong?" I told him, no. Here's what you need to do. You need to create a space, not a building, but a space with processes and clear rules how innovators need to explore. So they know, here's how I get money, here's how I know what to do, and here's how leadership is going to decide. If you have that explicit, you will change the culture. But the culture changes from the top. So it's very simple. If leadership does evidence-based investments and you have the processes, culture will change on its own. Now, what's the number one thing to change culture? There's only one thing you need to change and then apply the Strategyzer playbooks. What's the number one thing? What needs to change? It will change the culture almost immediately if you have the right CEO supported by the right board. And the board hires the CEO, okay, mostly. Not in the case of Tesla, it's the other way around. But so if the CEO is entrepreneurial, they will instill the right innovation culture with the right processes. But it starts with the CEO. Innovation is top-down and bottom-up at the same time.
This one. How can senior leadership teams use strategies, frameworks to turn AI-driven insights into actionable business strategies?
So again, it's not rocket science. It's back to the basics.
Science, yeah.
It's rocket science. It's number one, dual mindset, explore, exploit, number one. Number two, evidence-based processes and leaders who invest in evidence. And then you give what we call innovation guidance. You say, we want to create new value propositions and business models based on AI. So you narrow it down to the strategic guidance. You have those in place, things will almost happen automatically. It's not that hard, but you have to have a buy-in from everybody.
Next one. Go. Yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, no,
semantics rather than fundamental business value, of course.
Okay, let me be very clear. Technology, AI, robotics, whatever you want, does not create value per se, which sounds trivial, okay? But I work with technology teams that think technology first. What you want to instill is technology teams that immediately talk to customers. So AI, it's all the same stuff. Technology does not create value.
Enablers at best.
Yeah. So let me give you an example, a story. So about 10 years ago, I had to go to Portugal, and I worked with an accelerator. I went to every entrepreneur, and I asked them, how are you creating value for customers? I asked every entrepreneur, how are you creating value for customers?
On the accelerator.
What do you think? What do you think their answer was? My product does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I went to the next one. I said, no, how do you create value? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So everybody talks about features. AI or not, doesn't matter. So then I said, no, you did not listen to my question. How are you creating value? And then they looked at me and they didn't understand. So I said, take your feature and tell me why your customers will care about your feature. Now that seems, again, so trivial. But talk to your teams and ask them, how are we creating value for the customer?
For a customer.
Yes, and they will. It's, honestly, business is not that complicated, but we make it complicated. So we need to get back to the basics, is my take on it.
I think it's a motherhood question.
Yeah.
How can AI be used to create sustainable development?
That's above my pay grade. I'm not going to answer that. So again, if we look at the question is almost formulated in the wrong way. So it's the same processes to create sustainable businesses like any other technology. So again, it's asking, how do we create value for customers or stakeholders or beneficiaries with which business model? The only difference is, here you add a constraint and you say, We have an impact constraint, which is we want to create environmental impact. That's a constraint. That's the only thing you add, and the rest is creativity of how we do that.
To be fair to the question, two buzzwords are happening today.
Yes.
AI
yes.
and sustainable development.
Yes, yes, yes.
The question is about two buzzwords happening. Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good, okay.
Done. Thanks, Alex. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
You can see my hair is grey up.
Yeah. Good. And thanks for your patience. Yeah. Great. Excellent. Good.
Thank you, Dr. Alex, and over 840 viewers are watching the program live. We got a lot of questions. We tried and accommodated as many as possible. Thanks to all the members of TiE, MMA, and CIC for joining us. Thank you. Till we meet again. Bye-bye. Good night, and get back home safely.